And look wise.
I said, damn quiet.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Which group are you looking for? That's us, yes.
Have arrived.
I'm Jeff. Your name is?
David.
Hello, David.
You want a chair or cushions? I can help you. Cushions over here.
Sure.
If that's what you like. Chairs over
Or
here.
you can sit in that nice comfy chair.
Yeah. Right.
Hey.
Dave?
Yeah.
All right.
Can I turn this way?
David, how do we know you, or how do you know us?
I know you through just having looked around.
Uh-huh.
I started my own Who Am I meetup.
Uh-huh.
If I'd known that you existed in the way that you do, I probably wouldn't have bothered to start it.
Uh-huh.
I'll keep it going.
Yeah.
Because all the other spiritual meetups with all their angles and
Yeah.
trips and so forth didn't really seem like it was anything like what we're trying to do
Yeah,
in the area. So
that's right. Yeah. Well, welcome.
What's your meetup?
It was Suzanne,
Suzanne went to see you
right? Suzanne came to see
in Mount Airy, right?
Yeah.
She loved the church.
You're the Sagadata dude?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Somebody's got to be.
Those are big truths to
Every
know.
county needs to have its
Proper
Nersagadatta
answer
dude.
would be, I am that.
Be good.
You mean Nersagadatta dude?
That's a good T-shirt. I'm a Nersagadatta dude.
some interesting things going on over there in the building.
The Star Group.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you walked in there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What are they doing?
Uh huh. Did you get hit with a message from the deceased entity?
No, I sure didn't.
Oh, sorry about
Stick around
that.
long enough.
I heard
If you
like
stay around long enough. Yeah.
some yelling over there.
Really yelling?
Hearing things? Yeah.
Oh yeah, those crystals, they can really get you.
Yeah, you know, to keep it fresh, you got to get eccentric quick,
Mhm.
like real eccentric.
Gotta escalate.
Different flavors of tea just doesn't cut it.
Yeah. You know how you've been around this. You know how this rolls in various ways. You know, in the early stages of introducing anybody to these curious kinds of teachings, you know, there's a set of, let's say, pointers. You know, Ramesh used that word a lot, pointers and memes and things that, you know, kind of help orient or distort one's sense of confidence, right? And so many of us have been having this conversation for a while. So, you know, fuck those. We just don't use those much. For someone that's new that wouldn't have the background that you have, you know, then it's fun to kind of usher somebody into to see if there's a, you know, a handshake, right? Like, this is what we do, and what is it that you do, and do we have any bridge? Sometimes we get a bridge. Many times there's no bridge.
Screaming.
Running out the door.
Yeah, we've lost a few people.
He's modest. He's understating.
Run out the door. You know, it gets ridiculous after a while. I mean, in order for a so-called human being to engage a human being in, you know, contemporary society, you know, you lay down some tracks that solicit or cajole, you know, manipulate, provide a relief for I mean, nonsense, right? Just tons and tons of nonsense, because that's how we kind of initially get to know each other, is through a didactic, and to see if that didactic is, you know, shared somehow, of one's spiritual journey is, right, shared.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you dispense with that, I mean, you know, it's just, we're all bozos on this bus. I mean, it really is absolute, you know, buffoonery. So if there's nothing left in your in your spiritual lexicon, because the myth of becoming has revealed itself with greater temerity, snacks, tea, gossip, that, you know, that's just fucking it. And still, you know, even for the several years that several of us here have been meeting, you always find kind of a curious, gossip or criticism or something juicy, to get the thing started. Yeah, scatological references. That's right.
Genocide.
Genocide is also always a good one. That's
Genitals.
genitals, genocide, and scatological references. Sangha. Well, you have to come a little more often when they're.
Just step to the door.
Yeah, right through the threshold. So, in that respect, we're a blank slate. What do you got?
I've got a raft of experience in different groups. Mostly Bhakti Yoga seems to be my primary orientation by disposition.
Yeah, nice.
And, but it's the intellectual element that some of these major spiritual paths have. They're there, but they're not emphasized. And sometimes I like to go to places where they're emphasized.
Yeah.
And I don't mean intellectual, I mean straight,
Yeah, sure.
dialogue, going to naked truth.
Naked, yeah, that's right. Yeah, me too.
And
That's-
Bart Marshall and Paul Hederman. And
Yeah, I don't like Bart so much, but it's just not my cup of tea. Paul, I know and have hung out with, here and on the West Coast. So, yeah, I haven't had the.
Bart's really been a great teacher for me.
Yeah.
Although he seems to have gone a little bit crazy online. With
Oh,
the stuff he
jeez,
put-
I know.
Oopsie doopsie
On
daisy.
Facebook- On Facebook, you mean?
Yeah,
Where's he
Gotta
going?
keep
What's
it
happening?
fresh.
You're right.
This is woke folks,
yeah.
right? Woke folk.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very conspiratorial.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
I
he's
think
a.
anyone that was inclined in that direction has now gone crazy.
Listen,
Yeah.
Well, I think my
Oh,
own sense is that he doesn't necessarily believe the stuff he puts out. He just wants to disabuse people of their
that kind
Yeah.
of
normal sense of reality.
Sure. Yeah, right. Use
Consider something
whatever
crazy.
vehicle you have.
Consider something crazy. It might be just as plausible.
Sure. Yeah, that's right.
stuff. Parts.
That's right. Unhinging is, it's an ancient tool, right?
And Nisargadatta, I call him the Spinoza of enlightened beings.
Sure. Yep. Yes.
And what intrigued me about what you wrote in the email was you alluded to, you said that Nisargadatta, of course, he will occasionally use Hindu metaphors and so forth.
Occasionally, yeah.
Vocabulary, but
Right.
he is about as objective and straightforward and empirical as anyone ever out of India. So if he's
Yeah.
mythologically inclined by your standards, then I'm
Yeah.
more than curious to come here this evening and see what I encounter.
Right. Wow. Well, thanks. I mean,
Prepare to be
you're really, you're
disappointed.
prepared to be disappointed. Thank you. Whew, I was starting to sweat there, but now I'm feeling better. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. In your Sagadatta was then, I would say not as much now, but then if someone were journeying, let's say from the the Ramdas era, the Trungpa era, the Ramakrishna, the Ramana Maharshi, the Aurobindo, we can go on, right? Krishnamurti, right? So yeah, so you look at the Dharma, the
I got a
Asian.
doctorate in religious studies, by the way, so I
Nice.
study all this stuff officially. Just
Great.
so you all know.
Good. Then, yeah, you know it better than anybody in this room. I just drop names and pretend to have some familiarity, but I lie genetically. You look at no one's done a very good job of it, really, looking back, let's say, to the Beat generation or earlier than Beat generation, going back, let's say, to when Vivekananda spoke at the World Congress, right? I mean, before that, you're not going to find, right, a hell of a lot of stuff. And most likely that presentation predated, Blavatsky and the early Theosophists. right? So if you're looking back for the seeds of Asian, right, Dharma, Indian Dharma, inoculating the West, you'd have to go to the Vivekananda moment.
Yeah.
What happened before then? And then since then, you can have fun being a PhD, let's say, in that field. I mean, just flipping out, right? Looking at the personas and the teachings and the reiterations and the recasting of this body of, crazy wisdom through all the perturbations and social events that would have to include TM and the Beatles, right?
Yeah.
And the Doors of Perception and the fucking Hobbit and Castaneda, right? Whoa! Yeah, so you can just like, in a sense, revel, like any rock and roll addict should revel in the pageantry of Indian and Asian Dharma infiltrating Western consciousness. Franklin Merrill Wolff. Yeah. Wittgenstein, right? Yeah, so you're like, where do you go? Who do you become? Where does your loyalty, I'm not sure if lay or lie. And if you're, let's say, bhakti oriented, then you've got a whole nother fun pile of stuff to participate in, whether it's
I think in general, a lot of people move from, in a way, those of us who go directly to unstructured, pure jnani paths like this, I guess fortunate in some ways, because of those of us who work through all these structured paths,
yes,
and only later in the journey approach, to pure. You're ready to really cast aside all the
yes,
you've used and all the notions and ideas and.
Well, but that is the bhakti path. I mean, you're cooked. Right? You're cooked. And so the convergence of pure, jnana yoga, insight yoga, whether it's vipassana from the Asian or or Dzogchen or Kashmiri, wherever, you're cooked. And your one's bhakti, whether it's, deity devotion, God devotion, Brahmanic devotion, emptiness devotion, they're like, they meet up. They were never separate. And then you're just, you're just fucking gushing with whatever you got, however you roll, without having to mirror, the curious demonstration and presentation of all of these personalities. Fuck them. It's all you. Yeah, and that's not necessarily an easy confidence to inhabit. Partly because as a card carrying seeker for multiple decades, there's a natural a codependency, the pressure, the release and the enstranglement of devotion to something other than presence. So it gets, fun. You start to shake with the confusion of it all because spirit underlying is looking for resolution in other. That's Judeo-Christian, that's Islam. I mean, that's even Buddhism and Hinduism, the myth of self and other. Otherwise.
For me, I can honestly say I'm so grateful to have really finally found a sense that it's all there is. There's this gathering and merging of all these different paths and perspectives.
Yeah.
And the remarkable truth. I mean, I have a great interest. There's one path out there called Ekankar.
Yes, of course.
Which involves,
chanting Hugh,
who do all their spiritual work in the dream planes.
Well, sure. I mean that was an hysteria that also followed the theosophists around. It surprised me if the roots of the living Ek masters that always have the weirdest names if you followed who they are. I mean, the strangest fucking names.
What came out of mystical Sikhism?
Came out of
mystical Sikhism.
Okay, all right. So it's got Sufi stuff. Yeah.
The Sikhism. Not
Sorry,
anyway,
mystical Sikhism would be then northern India, right? Parsi.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's you know, it's Eckankar is an interesting case. I have more trouble integrating that one because the spiritist, which is this whole notion of levels and ascended masters,
It gets deep fast.
and it's all this fluff.
Yes,
I mean,
right.
there is a structure to higher reality. There is, I suppose, that the universe has an organization
It's up to you.
in the sub levels as well as
It will respond to you. If you're structurally fond, you got it. If you have an unstructural bent, you got it. You see, there's not a thing guiding, as a principle of phenomenon. Physics might like to say, oh yeah, we've made a lot of progress in terms of discovering, articulating, measuring, and reproducing a conceptual field that dictates how reality, right, rolls. No, not the case. Yeah. So in a sense, it's, who's dreaming it? Are you dreaming it, or is it dreaming you? If there's nothing other than this or you, and even the sense of separation as an entity and, and the universe is also mythical. So it's dreaming in situ, on demand, improvisationally, and self-fulfillingly. So if you want structure, you got it. If you don't, you needn't. But to presume that there is something that can be discovered and therefore is binding, right? That's not happening. I don't think that's the case. If it to be the case, then it's the case, right? For you, for as long as it is. Yeah.
But this is a highly defined hierarchy. Is that?
All these groups have their systems, and Eckankar just happens to be especially spectacular.
And there are
11 planes. You get up into ETs and the UFOs, who are part of the whole hierarchy.
I mean, doesn't Catholicism have all kinds of?
Oh yeah, no, they all have what's called emanation theories. It's this notions about creation descends from God in like a series of levels and breakdowns, and then you go backwards. There's a journey backwards in stages. And it's just really, you read the literature, connect with some of these groups that have these
you get lost.
The ascended masters and the
Yes.
angelic levels and everything.
Well, that's our friends over there. The Star Group
Yeah.
is borrowing from that,
Sure.
probably rather clumsily, but I mean, you can get really good at that stuff, and you can be like we are, buffoons, and still have a good time. Yeah. So, what prevails? the phenomenal expression that occurs through an incomprehensible array of emanation, or its companion emptiness, which could give a fuck, and does not rely on preemptive existence, whether Big Bang or any other cosmology, to be itself, to be autonomous. Yeah.
That's a point that Bart made in one of his retreats that I went to.
Yeah.
There's just, you can't, even the most basic and profound way of explaining anything. That's nonsense. It just reality just is. There's no explanation for it.
Yeah. When you melt down the didactic and do a good reduction sauce with your own consciousness.
I guess the miracle is that we all share a universe somehow, or seem to.
Well, see that? I mean, that's fun, and I'll do kumbaya with you any day. But yeah, there's no we and there's no universe, nor is there any share. I mean, there's just the right throbbing perturbation of what we refer to as experience. And without narrative, you don't have universe, you don't have we, and you don't have share. Those are derived from the impersonal throbbing, right? And association is created because experiencing is so fucking outrageous, and neither you nor anybody else remembers signing up for it. And yet, here it is. So let's say an organic step for the imagination of human is to come up with companion didactic, companion narrative, whether it's 11 dimensions or 3 or 300. there's only the outrageous, excruciating presence of experience. And the only one you know is yours. Right?
It's the amazing thing. It's the amazing thing. And I mean, especially, you know, I'm still processing cathartic material. What I have to do these days, chanting is being my biggest engine of purification processing stuff, which is still
Sweet.
Needs to be resolved.
Kali Yuga, chant away.
Right.
That was the instruction.
So the Sufi Kawali screaming at the top of my lungs does the trick, as almost nothing else does. So I have to go driving in my car in a place where the roads are
and let it rip.
Not much traffic.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be heard by anybody.
Yeah.
I can drive along with all the windows shut. The things in the CD. I'm screaming this out of my lungs. I'm weeping.
Yeah, I get it.
And my eardrums are being blown up by my voice. Screamed at the top of my lungs.
Yeah.
But that's what does it.
Yes, right. Yeah,
So
you
I
have to
process material, damn it.
Yeah. You have to go, you have to amp it up. You have to amp it up to that level to create a sufficient vibratory field that turns the trick on ecstasy. Yeah, let's go. Road trip.
It's not
One loud
ecstasy yet,
bus,
but
man.
boy, it's I don't know, the weeping happens. I don't begin to associate it with anything.
Oh, yeah, well, you're lucky you needn't.
Well, I'd say that was a big
Man, I get really
stepping
high
stone
sometimes.
for
Yeah, you
John
cry when you're high.
Lennon.
I was
Not
gonna
all
say,
the time.
Started the
This is so
Primal
beautiful.
I mean, he was all screaming. Oh, he did,
Who's that?
John Lennon.
Oh, yes.
The screaming
Oh,
song.
you mean
I forget
Yoko
what-
Ono?
No, well, she did too.
Yeah.
She did too. But that was just the way she sang.
Beautiful, artistic.
Yeah, I mean, that's an organic vehicle. You couldn't have planned it, plotted it. You know, you're not seeking a particular outcome from it. It wells up and you got to get behind the wheel and make it happen. Yeah. It's funny, and not that this requires any purification, but it certainly gets a bang out of it. And who's to argue with that? If it gets a bang out of purification, well, you're fucking collateral damage. It doesn't care what you do, cathartically or otherwise, whether you get anywhere with it or whether you don't. So, like anything, it's a vehicle of a non-thing. And, you know, one fulfills, let's just say, the karmic imprint, which can look like, you know, a cathartic demonstration. Yeah, for as long as that, you know, has fuel. Then the fuel wears out and you're like, I didn't get anywhere with it, but it sure was a blast.
And who even
This
knows
doesn't-
you got
this-
anywhere with it, you
This
know?
doesn't have any implication. I mean, part of the catharsis, for speaking for oneself, part of that cathartic impulse is, well, it's a coping mechanism with the seething revelation that this isn't about anything. And it's too fucking strange for this to be as dense and profound, iterative and magnificent and improvisational as it is, but it's not about anything. And I can't fucking take it. So yeah, I'm going to get behind the wheel and I'm going to shout some shit. And yeah, I mean, it's like having a lovely Kundalini experience. And then the fuel runs out. And where do we end up? Well, there's no place to end up. You could say, well, we end up where we began, but we never really began. So it just continues to play with itself. And I don't mean in a prurient manner, but maybe it does. You know, I haven't taken the call. Hey, God, so like, I mean, are you just fucking with yourself in a prurient manner? You know, click. We don't know. Being, and if there were any, well, we're being played.
And we like stories that try to get a handle on it. We love stories. I love stories that try to like make it make some sense. And
Sure.
the more I do that, the less alive I feel.
Okay. And it may be possible that you can do that, or you can do that, or you can do that, or I can do that. You know, you can call me Ray. And and it doesn't have to interfere with, an inner countenance that knows better.
It is what it is, whether you make stories about it or not.
That's right. And what's fun is that you start, it's like Terence McKenna, right? When speaking about the Big Bang, would just say, give me one little lie and, we'll take it from there, referring to the cosmology of the Big Bang. Same thing here. You have the slightest little seed impression about anything at all as it pertains to you, the world, life, fairness, love, sacred, anything, and whoosh, right? Instantaneously, you have all of the implication of that forth as imagination, stream forth as sentiment, stream forth as sensation. And so it's really just story about story about story about story about story about story about story. But that's fucking lovely. It doesn't have to be afflictive. It doesn't have to end. It's like, yeah, okay, I got stories, you got stories, everyone's got them, but what else?
Yeah, I guess there's a little bit of conditioning left to the effect that these great saints are all greater than we are.
Yeah, okay.
Jesus and all those guys.
Yeah.
There's all this tradition and the weight.
That's right.
And so forth.
Those fuckers and the traditions that encouraged that, you call it codependent duality, is let's just say significant as anything can be, hump for the card carrying seeker, the card carrying jnani, the card carrying bhakta to get the fuck over. Yeah. And they are miraculous stories, so I mean I get it. They're evocative and they're fun and they're heroic and right, pungent.
And they're mostly written by church fathers to snazz up the reality.
Okay. Right. That's right. It wasn't really a good idea for Ramana Maharshi to sit in that fucking cave and get eaten by rats and not give a shit. That was bad. He shouldn't have done that. Because then it becomes a kind of a blasphemous measure of whether you're enlightened or not, or what degree of samadhi that you're in, or whether you're Brahmanic or something shy of that, whether you're a stream entrant or you've gone all the way. All the systems do it. It's horrible. It's heartbreaking. Sorry?
Maybe if he would have stayed there, it would have been fine.
Well, if he had stayed there, then they would have eaten him and we'd never heard about him. They would have found a bag of bones at the bottom of the stairs, and there would have been no guy in a diaper with a bunch of, peacocks and cows running around Arunachala stirring shit up.
I mean, that bag of bones might have put you in samadhi, though.
If you were lucky enough to stumble upon them. Yeah, I don't doubt it. Same thing with Ramakrishna, right? Or even Nisargadatta. I mean, he wasn't necessarily a Gopalic ecstatic like Ramakrishna was, but he was an ecstatic. That's for sure. And a big persona like that, a big presentation like that is, well, it's cathartic. I mean, it's wonderful, but don't take it too seriously. Really. I mean, and he couldn't help being what he was, but that doesn't mean that he was any different, any better, any more eligible, anything. This has no implication. It's not about anything. So when your Sagadatta can show up and thrill one to the dharmic bone, but you got to get over it, because yours is the realization that counts, nobody else's. And it comes as it comes through you, as you, according to your karmic and super karmic blueprint, and it's formidable. Still playing catch up by reading Hindu comic books, we're in trouble. Yeah, we're in trouble.
Those Hindu comic books are pretty good. So.
Oh, come on, they're really good.
What the hell would you do with like Nisargadatta action video? You know what I mean? Like Batman.
Yeah.
Like how would you?
A lot of yelling.
Yelling and smoking. You'd have to add
Yeah.
some things. Levitation.
Yeah, that was a question I had. It'll come back to me.
How does consciousness fool itself? It's pretty simple. It self-promotes. instantaneously, according to its own, karmic or behavioral proclivity, and insists that it has found something. And concomitant with the myth of it having found something, it's other than that thing. I mean, if there's a Patanjali level, I know that's a bold statement, but if there's a Patanjali level to the journey, it's like right here, right now, not that you can find here or now, but whatever the fuck is going on. Have you found anything? You don't have to answer it. We're just playing, right? If consciousness, whatever it is, right? If the scintillating, impersonal, throbbing nature of sentient being has found anything at all, boom, self and other. And then the great journey of codependency gets lit. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's why, the Buddha was like alluding to life is suffering. That's a little glib, and I think the Pali was a little more subtle than that, obviously, right? So he might have been suggesting, like, motherfucker, if you find anything at all, you're going to find unhappiness. That's different than, right? It's a different feel to it. It's very intimate. It doesn't get hung up on the circumstances and events and the perturbations of what appear as a life. It's much more direct. It's like, if you find anything at all, then, right, identity is lit. Lit. Consciousness is lit. Object, subject is lit. And if we're disappointed, if we're existentially disappointed, which likely we're going to be if we found anything at all, well, then what happens? Well, catharsis and realization is the imaginary remedy for that. Yeah, but if you don't find anything at all, well, realization can just fuck off. Catharsis can fuck off. Bhakti, jnana, they can all just fuck off. Because there is no need for remedial intervention if subject-object is not lit. That's where, to be glib, because I have a tendency, a good Sufi outrage with the windows rolled up will resolve. It will resolve that nothing is found. Which then means you can still roll up the windows and travel down an empty road to your heart's content. Or not.
Just do it in the supermarket because you don't care anymore.
Or you'll do it in the supermarket because you don't care what happens to you anymore. So this is very intimate. You see, it's not about what's happened in my life, the things that I've read, the things that I've suffered, the things that I've overcome, the things that I hope to overcome, my recovery commitment, dream interpretation, and all lovely things, but it has nothing at all to do with anything at all because that's all just dreamt. It's all just symptom. It's very intimate, and it's right here. It's like anapanasati, right? It's at the edge of your nose. The jhanas are at the edge of your nose. Fuck me. I can't find anything. And it's not done as a vow or a commitment. I mean, it's a consciousness wiped clean. So, you don't make the claim. You can't make the claim. It would be blasphemous to your understanding to make any claim at all.
So, going back,
Let's roll it back.
where you Nisargadatta or anybody,
Yeah,
says something that just blows your mind,
yes,
blows you away.
right.
It just rings through the whole way. It just really
Yeah,
reveals itself.
yeah.
And there's a certain
Monty Hall was good at that.
Jeez.
Just as good as anybody,
My
really.
hero.
Yeah,
That's just an identity thing. That's just something that an identity could gain from. I mean, in a sense, is that,
yes,
am I saying that?
yes. Well, sure. Anything, whether it's secular, banal, beneath you, or rings, through your cosmic DNA.
So that's like, don't get hung up on that.
No, because see, getting hung up or not getting hung up is something you think you can or can't or should or shouldn't do. You're too late.
Yeah, it's already happened. Whatever's gonna happen.
It's already happened. It's already happening. It's never happened at all, nor will it ever. We tend to go to, the cajoling nature of the seducing nature of memory to create a scenario of things that have happened, are happening, will happen, and then, of course, to me. But that's not true. It's not worth our time, though a lot of people spend a lot of money and time preempting their future to avoid possible suffering. But hello. Right? And so really what that is I'm going to take myself on the road into my future. But I'm going to be armed with all kinds of, tools and
I'd like to take this guy, slow him down about 10 times. Puzzle over each sentence.
Oh, well, it's recorded it's free online.
Yeah, you
so
can-
you can go home and do that.
yeah, you can watch it and slow it
unfortunately.
down and say, wow, that guy's an asshole. Yeah, referring to myself, of course. Yeah. Be careful. No advice intended. Nothing's happening here. And shit that I'm saying or you're saying or anyone else is saying doesn't mean anything. And so the real disturbing revelation is that you nor anybody needs to process anything at all. That takes a little getting used to, because we're so driven by our, path and our processes and our catharses and our devotions, that processing and becoming and fruition and da-da-da-da-da are attractive to us, sensually and psychologically and spiritually. And like, that's not the case. You don't need to process anything. Not that I'm saying I'm a total idiot, or that, people throughout history that really were someone said, because there's nothing to be found. And you can't possibly benefit really from the processing of anything.
Mhm.
You see what happens, how quickly consciousness identifies with, wow, this being, this is far out. Oh, let's take it on the road. Let's see what it can do, right? Right? Let's put it into fifth and kick some shit. What's the high end? How far will it tack? Like, leave it alone. Turn the ignition off and walk off the track. And that instinct, that intuition, that intelligence, that's not processable. That's just, I'm fucking done. Again, through no vow, no commitment, not through knowledge, right? It's not causal. Awake is not causal. This is acausal.
Well, it's astounding having made the journey from traditional religion then to traditional mysticism with all the trappings and rituals and so forth, and so on. And then to gradually completely disregard all the props connected with spirituality.
Yeah.
And be completely ordinary.
Yes. Yeah. Lock up the prop room and walk out of the theater.
Those words "be completely ordinary" are pretty freaking. Because
Then
as long as you're
there's-
there trying to be special with spiritual anything.
I suppose there's sort of a practical mythology. I think that there are 4 kinds of people in the world. There's unconscious folks with no interest in spirituality. There's semi-conscious people with interest in spirituality. There are people who are awake. Then there are people who are awake who have special gifts on top of that. And those guys are the ones who make a lot of noise and get famous and so forth. But no, I mean, the way reality seems to work in terms of process for the planet and civilizations and scriptures and traditions and so forth, there seem to be such people. I wonder if there's really any kind of, there's no technical distinction between even those guys and everybody else. We are all quote unquote prophets of one sort or another.
If you, yeah, well, there, those kinds of super personalities, whether celebrities, artists, sports figures, broadcasters, or
founders. Or,
yes, right. You're like, yeah.
I think we did look at some of them and they're not so hot.
It's the, you know, it's like an existential habit to qualify. A young person might know a lot about baseball for the last 60 years. Someone else, you know, model rocketry, right? Someone else, porn stars of the 80s. That's mine, but you know, or you know, Ramana and Nirsagadata and Aurobindo and Krishnamurti and you know, Shivapuri Baba and fucking Muji even.
Muji and Rajneesh, don't forget Rajneesh.
That's right, Osho. Yeah, sure. Bring it on. You see, so it's just another fetish.
Wait, speaking of Osho, I was just reading something about him. Did he really like summon his minions to like poison the like food or the water supply or whatever? On the whole local town, right?
His followers tried to poison
Something
him
like
at one
that.
point.
Trying to poison him. No, I thought he sent them out to poison the whole town, and they like a bunch of people got like
There was
or something.
they went to a local sizzler
And it was like a
and
bunch, I
put
thought.
salmonella in the salad
I
bar
thought it was like a bunch of
in
restaurants.
hoping,
No?
I don't think it was that many, in the hopes that, because there was a meeting coming up in the community that would set the course for political influence for the zoning people. So what they were trying to do was make sick, not kill, people who might have voted so that they could have a majority vote to shift political influence for the purposes of zoning and all the other
Yeah,
stuff they were
That
trying
is
to
so
pursue.
fucking spiritual.
I thought, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Clearly they
Yeah.
got caught.
And then later on, because he died not that long after he was thrown out of the United States and returned to India, that the powers that, you know, caught up with him and deported him poisoned him on his on the plane or something. You know. Yeah, I mean,
Well, that's one downfall of being a celebrity. Someone's always looking to kill you. There's always
oh yeah, you got to be careful.
there's always somebody.
When Muktananda died,
My guru, my primary guru is Guru Muktananda.
okay,
Yeah.
got it. And so, who's your downstream?
Chittalasana was I
Chid?
initiation through her.
Yeah, yeah,
Blasted everything wide open.
yeah. Shakti gal with a bullet. Yeah.
That's for sure.
Fallsburg, India. Where?
No,
Either?
in South Fallsburg.
Fallsburg. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to India for a year.
Oh, nice.
And went around the country.
Yeah.
Stayed in that ashram for the most part.
So it was before Chid became as influential and powerful as she did. It was around the time of Muktananda's passing that a then so-called realized devotee, his name escapes me, claimed foul play because his body started decomposing much faster than it should have as an accomplished yogi of his ilk.
Oh, I know.
There's a lot of stories.
No, there's Yaneshwar Maharaj story from the 16th century to that effect. It's something. I'm unfamiliar with this as far as the
Yeah.
skeletons in the city yoga closet. That one I'm not aware of.
Oh yeah.
Something about no, Shankaranand is alive. I didn't have heard any stories of anyone who actually died and whose body. So what happened? This is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I hear you.
The other stuff is par for the course, like Muktananda's fooling around with girls and so forth.
Yeah. That's
Time
right.
it was girls at least.
But
Yeah. Oh yeah, Muktananda I think mostly did it with girls. Yeah. Some of them were underage. They
yeah,
say
a lot of people, it's just an interesting thing. I
They
always
move
thought,
on from
okay,
boys at
it
least.
was a non-penetrative intercourse. It was just putting the
Coming.
head of the penis somewhere around the vulva for call it, you know, Shakti exchange,
Transmission.
transmission,
It's like
you know,
coding,
which
but
lit him up. Think of it as a
Tears
transfusion.
and coning.
Yeah. He gave good cone. But who knows? You know, I wasn't.
It made the Catholic Review. There was a lady who wrote an article for the Catholic Review based on that spirit.
There was all tons of breakdown around his behaviors,
just
his
jealous,
passing,
they think
Chidvilasananda's behavior, the outing of her brother.
Yeah.
You know, the accumulation of the wealth and the power over the ashram, when Muktananda's intention was that the two of them would share it, and they harassed him for years. Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, this is that much fun. And you see, when you get blown open, and getting blown open is a rush. I mean, I would do it over and over and over again if I had any more lifetimes, and I sure hope I fucking don't. But if I had any more lifetimes, I would sign up to get blown open again and again and again. But you see, that, as lovely as it is, sets the fetish wave in motion. You think something happened to you. It didn't. But you remember it as something happened to you. And that sets the fetish wave in motion. Then realization becomes a destination, an event, a remedy, an ameliorative, which is not true. But that's the price you pay for being blown open by, a Shakti holder. Paid dearly for it.
Yeah, nothing like the post-event sadness.
There's that. Yeah.
Just trying to get back.
Yeah. Post-shock. My whole life has been a bad case of post-Shakti depression.
You should go have the image of somebody's enlightened penis just kind of hanging around.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Don't get stuck on
Saved
that.
by the bell.
Right in the back of the
Talk about
penis.
traumatized.
Unless you were a devotee of Sai Baba, then you might have that. It goes on and on. It's so rich. It's so intimate. The juice of the Leela, the sensory and supersensory seduction. That's how Kali plays it. That's what she knows best. So, and we sign up. We can't refuse her. It's not possible to refuse her. But maybe it's possible to see through the sacred ruse. And then the imagination of fruition just dissipates. Then you don't have any claim to make. And along with it, 11 dimensions, whether Ekankarish or
Jewish Merkaba,
Kabbalah. I was thinking of the master with the nose, Meher Baba. Yeah, because he was very big on dimensionality and stuff like that. Yeah, it's just this is Kali playing roulette. That's all. And for as long as it's captivating, well, then, we're products of that captivation. We're held captive by that captivation.
And to be one of these teachers who must teach through the vehicle of a long tradition with certain scriptures and certain rules and conventions.
Yeah.
To have to communicate that way. It's just for me, just thinking of the different ways that different teachers do it under different circumstances.
Sure.
And how it can be, it can all be the same thing.
Hey, it's 2017. We're out of fucking time. And this is the West. Not that that means anything. But as the Dharma, right? As the Dharma travels through cultural medium is the earth, the foliage, the animals, the quality of air, right? I mean, right? This thing is traveling through medium. And the medium is civilization and how civilization rolls. And so let's say in the West is just a metaphor for like, yeah, we don't have to play the comic book anymore. We don't have to be held captive by the metaphors and cosmologies that have come before. And that's what's so both radically liberating and disturbing to many, because they're not yet ready to stand in Brahmanic wonder and put an end to spiritual codependency. That's the invitation. At least that's what we like to play around with. You can see, one can see in oneself that the proclivity for fetishizing spirituality, for codependency, for worshiping masters worthy of worship, we remain adolescent. I mean, all those systems would encourage one to be worshipful, to do the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and the this and the that and the tradition and the this and the that and the tradition. And those are all self-serving. That's just like the Pope wearing a big hat around in big hats. The fuck do they know? They don't know anything. The Dalai fucking Lama doesn't know anything. Yeah, he's a nice guy. But he's also, because of his station in life, in terms of his influence over Tibetan culture, there's a bunch of people that want to kill him, and probably for good reason. Not me, but, all kinds of weird, strange Buddhists that have been disenfranchised by the political exigency of the Dalai Lama are not happy with his authority. And I'm not saying he's good, bad, or indifferent. It's just kind of comes with the territory. If you're the king of the Tibetan people, whether you're enlightened or not, it's a fucking drag. And now the Chinese took out the Panchen Lama, and he knows it. He knows that the hopscotching of the Panchen Lama and the Dalai Lama to recognize each other over multiple generations within the Tibetan culture has just been usurped, not so recently, by the Chinese, because they kidnapped the Panchen Lama and they replaced him with a fraud. So that means when the present Dalai Lama dies, the Chinese would like to use their shill to say who the next Dalai Lama is, which is not going to be the genuine inheritor of that tradition, which means the Tibetan culture, which the Chinese have been trying to do for quite a long time, gets liquidated. And he knows it. He doesn't get on TV and say, I'm really sad about this, because he's forced by virtue of his station to be, compassionate or diplomatic.
Yeah, right. He's like, I'm not gonna come back. Finally, I'm done. I'll see you guys
It
later.
could be that too. He's like, hey, it's been a blast, but it's over. But we can find all of these absurd conspiratorial references no matter where we look. Everywhere.
Yeah, it's inspiring. The Panchen Lama can sit in solitary confinement for 10 years and get out without got out and started protesting again. Then they finally poisoned him.
Yeah. Okay.
But just to be able to sit in solitary, not be bothered at all, to not go nuts.
Yeah.
You're sitting in the fullness of the core effulgence of reality, and you've got it all. So there's no. Yeah. You're not going to chew your fingers off like people in solitary usually do.
That's right.
The Western Hemisphere.
Yeah.
I chew their own fingers off. I never heard that.
Yeah,
that's a new one.
The average person, people go in solitary,
cut
average
themselves,
prison, there's nothing to do, so they tend to chew their fingers off.
Well, my son's been in for extended periods of time and he never did anything. He's in for like 75 days right now.
In
So-
solitary?
Yeah.
Well, it depends, but they define solitary differently. Solitary isn't the solitary that I've heard about isn't actually a solitary. It's the impression you get from the word. But maybe I'm wrong.
I can't speak to what it means. I wanted to ask you or bring up
Don't ask me.
the feeling that I have when I get involved in holy books.
Yeah.
Or it could be Rumi.
Really?
Whatever.
That's a high-end holy book.
It's not necessarily to gain knowledge.
Sure.
It's to enjoy a reflection.
Yes,
you might say.
sure.
And I think that's, for me, that's an attraction.
Belong to a bowling league.
I'm getting the poo-poo from you. Okay. Well, it doesn't mean shit.
It means what it means when it means that. And who's
That's
to
okay.
who's to qualify it? Whatever this means, as it means to whomever it means it to, when it means it to, and the way that it does is the way that it is, but not really, because anything you say about it is just an after the fact contrivance.
God
You
damn,
want to
but
read Rumi?
yes,
Fucking read Rumi.
But what other, like, if you were to look for a pastime,
Smoke
Yeah.
crack.
Smoking crack?
I'm afraid of crack.
All right then. Something a little
Start
less
with
than crack.
marijuana,
That doesn't work.
Unless we have.
Stay with the Rumi.
I mean, it's like a pastime
Of course.
where you go where you get your best hit.
Yeah, that's right.
It's better than cutting your fingers off.
You know?
Yeah, it's better than chewing your fingers off, so I'm with it. Down with that.
I don't know,
So,
chewing your
Tukaram
fingers off
Maharaj.
will make you feel pretty.
He was this
Take all your
14th
other
century
pen right away.
Maharashtrian Bhakta. Bhakta. I used to read his stuff standing in line in the ashram. It's just high in
Food.
poetry.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, yeah, well, it's good. Read Rumi.
Yeah.
By all means.
Yeah.
You know,
Read Rumi, Wallace. or
however, that
ACDC.
same hit can come from nothing.
That's right.
you
Check
know?
out at Redner's.
But,
So,
you know, you're
Yeah,
looking
most
for it,
likely.
but I'm still going after that hit from somewhere,
Oh, why not?
you know?
What do you think? Your just addictive nature was just gonna go away?
Well, no, I don't even know if it's, I don't know what it is.
Good luck with that, sucker. We listen. We can all find anecdotal references to what we think has occurred prior to this moment, what shaped our personas and spiritual aspiration, and we can even take all of that myth seriously enough to imagine that I like or don't like things, that I've been shaped by things, that I've been inspired by fantastic masters that defy physics, right? And yeah, it's all good.
Okay, thank you. We've worked that out.
All right then.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
then.
I did it again.
Hey, it's not.
I'm raising the bar though.
No, that's good. That's right. Yeah. Really, it is. It's a strange. Consciousness distances itself from itself faster than you take notice. That's what samsara is. It distances itself from itself faster than you take notice. So then we become inebriated by and enthralled by the exuberance with which consciousness can appear to create a binding mirage. Okay, got it. And everything, secular and spiritual and in between, whether fingers to the bone or, able to endure difficult circumstances for decades without, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't. Why would I value a yogic master that can endure egregious circumstances without effect? Well, because I crave invulnerability for my own existential disquietude. So then I place that in a hierarchical position of wonder, respect, perhaps adoration. And that's understandable, but that's a reaction to the identity that, one imagines one is the product of, to hold something yogically miraculous in esteem. Fuck it.
Usually only like little pieces of it, well, I want to be sanguine, but I don't really want to sit in a cave and be eaten by bugs. But I want to be sanguine enough so I might be able to sit in a cave and be, it's like really.
That's right. That's right.
An hour a night.
Yeah, and our prodigious
Really what you want?
our prodigious capacity to imagine events and circumstances, to esteem yogic feats, to aspire to enlightenment or imperturbability is binding. It's samsaric. Yeah, because an identity gets created instantaneously. An association with body-mind accompanies this sense of identity. Subject-object befuddles us. Then we're at risk to every insult and injury that human beings are capable of meting upon human beings. And that has no limit. I mean, we're insane in terms of what we can do with, call it a, neocortex and opposable thumb. I will take the fucking planet.
Not a coffee.
Right. So yeah, we're capable of heinous acts, and of course, those that frightens us. It's intimidating. It's unpleasant. So a reflex occurs for us to try to whittle out of. Right. Either present suffering, past suffering, or the imagination of future suffering. And one of the ways we do that is to hold yogic feats of imperturbability in high esteem. Big deal. And it's the hierarchy which occurs spontaneously as measure, as comparison, as discernment, as pleasure and preference. That is the samsaric impulse. So yeah, so getting wiped clean of our own fetishistic predilection is challenging, thrilling, and challenging. But if we don't do it, we will continue to remain under the influence of these robust, throbbing identity vectors that don't really exist. And where that leads you, well, that's your fucking problem, right? I don't know. You see how we're like, you gotta see how time jumps on your back. A sense of self having existed prior to now, existing now, hopefully or expectantly, predictably existing a moment from now. And that's just a huge wave of some samsaric impulse. So like, oh, hey, I'm not a product of time. I'm not a product of I'm. The subject-object pulse wave doesn't seduce me. One doesn't become inert. One doesn't have to go into some kind of rigor mortized samadhi. I mean, those are nice, if they come and go, yeah, if it comes, take a ride. But to aspire to rigor mortized samadhi as an indication of my success as an enlightened being, fuck that.
So others can worship.
Yeah, right. For what? For imperturbability, for invulnerability, for emancipating myself from the body mind, from gesticulating wildly like Nirasagadatta? Oh, fuck.
I was a particular time and place I was in. There happened to be 3 different teachers who were close enough around.
Yeah.
For particular times where I could see them all within 3 days.
Cool.
Or 2 days.
Yeah.
And the very opposite of what you're supposed to do instead of Siddha Yoga orthodoxy, sticking guru and so forth.
Yes, Siddha Yoga orthodoxy. Yeah. Right.
So I go see this guy, this Indian guy who he comes out it's classic, his arms and legs are withered. And deformed because he spent so much time sitting in a cave.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And, wow, that's a case of real.
Got to trade? Got to make money. Well, if you get a big hit, take us out to dinner, you motherfucker. I mean, our friend Ryan.
I get a loan.
Yeah, hit it.
There goes my retirement.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when the currency markets start to swing, he has to go into action.
Whether he has a bus to catch or a shift to get to, I guess.
He has a trade to make.
He has his phone set up to alarm when it crosses a certain
He's
threshold.
lost his
And he has to
mind.
go-
Don't worry.
He has
about it.
lost his mind.
He has to go get onto his computer.
He's a nerd.
Thanks a lot of this.
It's a money nerd.
Wow,
Man, I wish I was.
better than being a crystal meth nerd.
Well, that's,
Maybe.
Yeah, it is. Trust me.
So I'm sorry, 3 teachers. You got interrupted by
It just struck me, this guy, that's like, I read that by Bart. He said this is like the Christian fundamentalists. These guys who think
Yeah.
that you should
Sure. Yeah.
be awake, but
Yeah. Well, Buddha cautioned, right, about the extremities of certain yogic austerity practices,
Right.
and coined the middle way. Chill the fuck out on the way to realization. If we become seduced by phenomenality, then a value system blossoms instantaneously as myth. And that's what Mara was throwing at the Buddha under the Bodhi tree. Kept throwing, right? The seduction of phenomenality, of implication, of this being about something, about value systems, about lust and fear and danger and greed and successful day trading. And the Buddha was like, yeah, fuck you. In a kind way, because he had to be. And then the gesture was a paganistic gesture, which was touching the earth.
Right.
And it was the, call it the grounding to the Gaiac womb that dispelled Mara's onslaughts. And here we are, under the Bodhi tree. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have brownie bites, so we're good. That's the fun of it, see? Consciousness unadorned by, narrative, by reference field, is under the Bodhi tree, touching the earth. And the pageantry of seduction is dispelled. And no claim need be made. And no teachings need ensue.
Yeah.
But maybe it takes 2,500 years, give or take, for the revelation of emptiness to be communicated, shared, without cosmology, without hierarchy.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Enough people understand that. So.
Yes. A Buddha did his best, right? They say, I wasn't there, maybe I was, but I forgot, that he was like, I can't tell anybody about this. I don't know anyone that would have a clue.
In the first 2 weeks after enlightenment, it said that his greatest temptation was not to teach.
Yeah. Yeah. This is cool. Oh yeah. Bunch of fuckers are suffering. Oh well. And then came the karmic, right? The karmic impulse. And then the generations of co-opting the revelation and turning it into a cosmology. Oh well. Shucks.
Yeah, part of me still likes to think that the notion of planetary evolutions, the planet's evolving spiritually just as individuals evolve spiritually.
Please, yes, of course. Yeah.
Nation states can evolve spiritually.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't see any evidence of it, but it's a nice idea.
yeah, they can drop down a couple levels too, it seems to me.
Things got to get worse before they get better, I suppose.
Yes, this is improvisational. Really it is. I mean, this is a fucking rubber room. Nation state's an idea. Evolution, an idea. The sentiment that accompanies it's not yours. It's just perturbation in a field. And that the imagination that this is physical, that this is time and spatial, that it has, that operates according to evolutionary impulses, or that it's causal even, is not true. But if you want it to be true, most people will agree. And then share with you their eckankaric cosmology so that you can become tithing to them. But you needn't. You needn't participate or invest in any cosmology at all. And that's one metaphor for, present liberated understanding. Cosmology free, causality free, implication free. This doesn't mean anything. It doesn't do anything. It's not about anything. But if we still hold the slightest seed that it is, right, you're lit with magical delusion, which is fantastic. If we go extinct by virtue of exigent, short-sighted, a-spiritual, non-ethical, amoral behavior.
Eckhart Tolle said that. I went to an Eckhart Tolle retreat at Omega. He said that if the planet could shake us off like a
flea,
go back to 5% for a whole new start in the population.
Yeah.
He said we're going to destroy ourselves if we don't wake up.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably most people at the SAND conference agree.
At the what conference?
SAND, Science and Non-Duality.
Oh.
You know those folks?
Okay.
Hey, we saw Jeannie Zandy come through here last week or 2 weeks ago. And in the casual amorous repertoire that we were having with her, she made the comment that the earth is dying. And therefore commit yourself to joy, waking up. That was a very casual remark, but that's what she said. No one was like, do you really mean that? Just whoop. So, yeah, Eckhart is a sensitive enough guy. He sees the writing on the wall as concerns.
Sensitive right now to figure that out.
That's
be kind of actually just.
That's right.
Not a fucking moron. It's really not that.
That's right.
Oh, are you magical? You thought that up, really?
Well,
it's pretty much just like
he's a leprechaun. He's
a leprechaun.
He's a leprechaun. Don't take him that seriously. He wears a funny hat and he sits at the bottom of a rainbow and he has a pot of gold.
It's interesting, when you wake up, you don't automatically start recycling. You don't automatically go vegetarian or start recycling or doing all these other good things that you do.
might go actually the opposite.
Yeah. You might go, no, recycling is not going to save the earth.
The link between what we might refer to as waking up and then what would you call it? Progressive behavior, right? Progressive life-sustaining behavior. There's nothing. There's nothing there.
Yeah, like
one guru in Vermont loves allopathic medicine. People go to him with various complaints and frustration, and he just says, go see your doctor, take the pharmaceuticals, do the surgery, and that's that. Someone else is like herbs and crystals and homeopathy and ear candling and what? You see? across the
Sagadata
spectrum,
just smoked cigarettes.
Senior
and
Sagadata got throat
wanders in
cancer,
circles
and
worship shit and then dies of
and
throat cancer.
that's right. And so did one, his, what was his name? One of his devotees. Who was her? She died also from cigarette smoking. I think she was smoking from her throat at the end of her life, through the hole. Yeah.
That's like
Absolutely. Even the slightest concern with who and what I've been, who and what I am, who and what I will become is just Mara throwing monkey poo in your face. That's all it is.
I wonder how many of us non-awake people, this is rationalization for inappropriate, crazy wisdom.
What do you mean this?
This meaning the shit that we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean,
It's all total rationalization. There's nothing here. Not real or unreal. Whatever you bring to it, you bring to it. Really, if one's feeling is to drink from this weird fountain and find a little nourishment in it, far out. If one's reflex is to consider it and construe it from a more, let's say, rationalistic point of view and be perturbed or dismiss it, far out. Really. Yeah, whatever karmically one needs to become in the next moment, whether in the acceptance or the rejection of a thing. Okay. Really. This is disturbing. This is alchemy. It really is. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. If one lets it under their skin, and that's not up to us or anyone, but if it gets under your skin, well, then it acts as a sacred corrosive. If, and for good reason, there's, let's say, a rejection or a distancing from some of the things that we're implying, that's great too. You can't stop this.
I think often there's a creation of another cosmology based on what one thinks one hears.
Yes, exactly. Instantaneously.
We morph it into something we can get.
Right,
that's
around
right.
And the mind feels safe with.
And I think maybe that's what
Yes.
you were referring to. Somebody just taking off with like, oh yeah, just putting something together based on what they think.
It's not easy to warm up to present experiencing being absolutely acausal and without implication. Because our conditioning is so strong in the direction of a defining cosmology, whether it's 11 dimensions or, Christ on the cross. And that's what we're playing around with, is leaning into the impulse to invest over and over and over again in definition, specificity. And that's what consciousness does. That's how it convinces itself of whatever it thinks it needs to convince itself of. I didn't do it. Present experience is without reference.
I just made another useful correlation in my mind, soon to be discarded.
Yeah. I like the short-lived ones too.
The notion that, the reason that the class 4 beings that I was talking about.
Class 4,
By the way, there's the people not interested in the awake, and there's the awake plus special gifts.
Plus special gifts. Yeah, awake with benefits.
The awake plus special gifts.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you find in the religions.
Yes,
Those are the big founders of the traditions and so forth.
that's right.
That's where they belong.
And that's where they belong, those fuckers. That's right. Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's profound. Because
I never quite put that together before.
Whew.
All the thinking I've done, but so it's got to be something to that observation.
Well, my bias would be by seeing how profound demonstrative yogic accomplishment sets up waveforms of cosmology, hierarchy, authority, and seeker see, seeker do. Then by contrast, one sees another concomitant complementary dharmic path, which has nothing to say. And I talk a lot, clearly, but it's just a cover for nothing to say. And no anticipation of yogic demonstration. Free.
I have a question.
I'm making noise not because you have something to say, but because you're posing it as a question.
So, and so it's a cliche, but I'm going to use it. What would be? Are there portals?
Yeah.
Into openness? I mean, I suppose there's not, but can you help me with this?
Sure. Why not?
Why not?
All you've got is portal.
Okay.
And portal is synonymous with actualization. Portal and fruition are exactly the same.
So then perhaps it is I'm going to use the word perspective.
Yeah.
That you feel as though certain things serve as a portal. I mean,
for sure.
So there's the sort of, what would you say? That's how you define your experience then?
Yes, it's the drama field of boundary conditions.
Okay.
Yes, it's the drama field of frames of reference. Yeah, because experiencing has to take itself for something less than the possibility of being something more. And then the catharsis of paths and processes and portals arise instantaneously and proliferate across the civilization, across the ages, as multiple cosmologies of things to do and not do. You know, whether that's Western occultism or Eckankar or anything else that we can find in the lexicon of human imagination.
So, like in the religious system, then, it can seem to be a barrier, but it's actually a portal like anything else.
Yeah, anything's anything else.
So, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, it's kind of fun. I mean, here's this. Don't ask me what it is. Where, why, how, when. It's like, what the fuck? What? The basic condition, if there were one, is, absolute existential incredulity. Existential, you could say, confusion, or existential non-specificity. It's completely disarming. And here it is, sitting under the Bodhi tree. It's completely disarming. So what we're struggling with, whether we're any one of the four, right, is just a fanfare of, karmic proclivity, a fanfare of narrative, a fanfare of, interest or disinterest. And none of it is more or less qualitative than anything. I mean, the hierarchy and the capacity for contemplating and enjoying and cultivating sacred hierarchies falls apart. and we don't miss it. Yeah, that's a little challenging, you know.
Challenging if you're a seeker.
Yeah. If realization is the product of anything at all, it can't possibly be realization. Present experience is acausal. And that's the revelation. But what is it a revelation of? Nothing. Because it doesn't have any reference. Neither reference or frame. So, done. Just fucking done. Under the Bodhi tree.
Thinking of my biggest spiritual credential.
Uh-huh.
I went to one of Amachi's retreats, a couple of them.
Yeah.
The hugging saint.
Yes.
She's hugging person after person. I get there.
Ah.
That happened 3 times in a row.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Gosh,
Right.
I'm gonna get somewhere. That's auspicious.
She picked up your signature, man. That's right. That's right. Yeah. We're enrolled. This is fun. I mean, curiously, we're enrolled by, the sacred ruse, because it knows our Achilles heel. It knows our most intimate vulnerability. It knows how to create a handshake so that we are
Enthralled.
yes, that's right. Yes, enthrallment was just another one of the darts that Mara was offering Buddha, and that was also without fanfare. You wouldn't even say rejected. It's like no purchase. No purchase. What Amachi is, this is. You are. It's
a
easy.
good thing overall. There's more harmony around these folks. They're going to set up good vibrations overall. Yeah, there's all this crazy wisdom, interesting, fun stuff we can talk about and
Yes.
rationalize our poor behavior with, but it's good overall. It's a good thing overall.
The value system is yours. Good means what? Right? Sure. Yeah, good, wholesome, crazy, whacked out, beneficent. Sure. Check, check, check.
Well, I think Mara, some of her hits would be welcome. The offerings that she would give as a distraction can be loved
She is
and can be called good.
she's a tsunami of distraction and has apparently done good deeds. They also accused her hospitals of putting people under local anesthesia and harvesting organs. Got to make money somehow. If you can't sell little chocolate dolls of Amachi over and over and over again, then you harvest a few kidneys, and no one's the wiser. If you build institutions in the world, even with the most sacred, spiritual, enlightened intentionality and yogic formidability, you're going to end up tickling and triggering what we might call bizarre karma. You fuck with the world, guess what's going to happen? It's going to fuck with you right back. I don't care how enlightened you are. So, okay. If one is drawn to institutionalized masters of awakening, plenty to go see. Tithe and volunteer and go to meetings and enroll and recruit. Knock yourself out. What this is I don't know what it is, but it certainly isn't institutional. It is very curious. If you reach out and you touch, well, in a recent Facebook post, the metaphor was if you lick the frog, you're in hallucination. Don't lick the frog. If you touch the membrane of what reality appears to be, it touches back. Then enthrallment arises instantaneously, and one becomes drunk with delusional fantasy. Not a bad thing, not a good thing. It's just how, right, the mysterious nature of phenomenality teases itself into being. If realization were something, and thank God it's not, then a metaphor would be, don't lick the frog. Then there's this, as there's always been, just this. And there is no cosmology. There's nothing to quarrel with. There's no institution, but there's no not institution. That freedom is sovereign. How free do you want to be?
Yeah.
Any questions?
Jeff, pass me a mug, please.
Let's see.
Thank you. Thanks.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. thanks.
This will never be a major aspect of mine, but it's always going to be there as an important adjunct to what I'm doing in spiritual work.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. It seems to be mostly, I'm going to see, I've gotten involved in, TAT, Truth and Transmission.
Yeah.
Rose.
Yeah, Rose. Tat, Sig.
I'm going to talk there this coming week, this in November. Ta-da.
Oh, good for you. So that's a sign of some kind of recognition amongst your peers.
Sure.
That you've been invited to speak at Bart Marshall's TAT hallucination.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the TAT stand for?
Truth and Transmission. Yeah. Interesting people,
Should be
folks.
called TIT, and they should just find
I like
something to make up an I
truth
with.
without a thought. Yes, I hear you. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Hope you had as much fun as we did. I'll see you next time.